Hey everyone, welcome. In today's explainer, we're unpacking a universal, incredibly frustrating, and often deeply misunderstood human experience, chronic procrastination. I mean, we've absolutely all been there, right? You're staring down a massive deadline, swearing to yourself that you'll start in just 5 more minutes, only to find yourself 3 hours deep into a rabbit hole about how to forge a medieval sword from scratch. It's totally baffling. But what if I told you that putting things off isn't actually a time management problem at all? Instead, it's this fascinating, complex psychological battle happening right inside your own head. So let's get right into the science of why we delay and, more importantly, how we can finally stop getting in our own way.
Okay, let's dive into this by introducing a character we can definitely all relate to. Let's call him Thomas DeLay, or just Tom for short. So Tom has a massive, career-defining report due in exactly 1 hour. It's literally the absolute most important thing on his plate right now. So what is Tom doing? Well, he's currently in his kitchen, on his hands and knees, meticulously scrubbing the grout between his floor tiles with an old toothbrush. I know, why on earth is Tom obsessing over his physical environment instead of writing the report that dictates his professional future? Well, he's fully convinced himself that he can't possibly focus in a dirty house. From the outside, it looks completely irrational, but it's a classic lie we tell ourselves every single day just to justify avoidance.
Now, you might be thinking Tom is just being lazy, but laziness and avoidance are entirely different beasts. You see, laziness is characterized by a complete lack of urgency and no real emotional charge. If Tom were truly lazy, he'd be perfectly content just lying on the couch doing absolutely nothing. But Tom is highly agitated. He's experiencing anxiety-driven avoidance. His brain is actually using the physical act of cleaning as a short-term regulation strategy to cope with what psychologists call the perfectionism procrastination paradox. To put it simply, Tom is a perfectionist. He is so utterly terrified that his report won't be a masterpiece that he avoids starting it altogether. He's avoiding the task purely to dodge that terrible, heavy feeling of potentially falling short.
Beneath Tom's skull, there is a literal battle raging. On one side, we have the limbic system. That's one of the oldest, most primitive parts of the brain, and it strongly, aggressively craves immediate comfort and pleasure. On the other side, we have the prefrontal cortex, the logical center responsible for planning, self-control, and executing those long-term goals. When Tom faces that intimidating blank page, his brain registers serious stress. His limbic system screams, "Go play video games, go eat a sandwich, protect us from this stress right now," and it completely overpowers the logical prefrontal cortex. So Tom isn't actually avoiding the work itself. He's avoiding the feelings of anxiety, frustration, and self-doubt that the work triggers.
And this conflict triggers what psychologists call an amygdala hijack. The amygdala is the primary threat detection center in the limbic system. An emotional brain activity processes incoming information milliseconds faster than your rational brain ever could. So when Tom sits down to write, his amygdala literally perceives that blinking cursor on his laptop screen as a physical threat. It reacts exactly the way an ancient ancestor would react to a bear in the woods, triggering an immediate, irrational fight or flight response. His body isn't asking for a logical debate, it's demanding an exit. By scrubbing those kitchen tiles, Tom successfully escapes the threat, providing his brain with immediate, powerful relief. His overprotective brain has just fully hijacked his rational intentions.
This urgency bias creates a massive dopamine trap. Today's modern environment constantly bombards us with micro-stimuli. Think about things like answering random pinging emails, heavily organizing your notes, or, cleaning off your desk. These are urgent but incredibly low-value tasks. Tom's brain naturally prioritizes the quick, cheap thrill of clearing his inbox or setting his fantasy football roster over the deep, fulfilling, and truly important work like actually writing that major report. Tom's brain is literally tricking him into feeling incredibly productive and busy while he's actually entirely neglecting his long-term goals.
And listen, this isn't just a quirky, relatable habit. It has real-world costs. Take tax season, for example. Tom, just like the average person, loses about $400 a year simply by rushing and making careless errors at the absolute 11th hour. To put that into perspective, this anxiety-driven avoidance comes with a hefty price tag, financially, professionally, and in terms of chronic, lingering stress that can seriously damage our mental and physical well-being over time. When we put things off, we aren't just losing time, we're actively taxing our future selves.
Which brings us to a sneaky phenomenon known as productive procrastination. I absolutely love this 1949 quote from Robert Benchley. Anyone can do any amount of work, provided it isn't the work he is supposed to be doing at that moment. And honestly, that is exactly what Tom is doing with his kitchen tiles. Productive procrastination, or structured procrastination, involves doing marginally beneficial things,
Like suddenly deciding this is the exact right moment to finally fix the leaky sink in the bathroom, specifically to delay doing the one truly important thing. It's a strategic, entirely subconscious, task-switching trick. Now, while Tom might feel highly productive in the moment with his wrench in hand, we have to outline the serious hidden dangers here. Because Tom is doing something arguably useful, he falls victim to self-licensing. That's where doing a good deed, like fixing a sink, gives him subconscious permission to do a bad one, like completely blowing past his work deadline. It also leads to inaction inertia. That simply means the longer Tom puts off the report, the heavier and more completely impossible the task feels. But most dangerously, it totally masks the core issue. Tom is still living in a state of high physiological stress, constantly worrying about the report while he's physically under the sink.
So, to understand exactly when Tom will finally snap out of it, we have to look at temporal motivation theory. Imagine Tom is deciding between grabbing a beer with his buddies right now or working on that career-defining report due next Friday. Grabbing a beer offers a reward that is perpetually in the present, so its appeal remains uniformly high. But the reward of a finished report? The brain heavily discounts that reward because it's just so far away in the future. It isn't until the deadline is looming right over Tom, say at 2 a.m. the night before it's due, that the sheer panic sets in, the utility of working spikes, and he finally feels motivated to type.
Okay, so we know Tom's brain is hijacking his best intentions to protect him from discomfort. How do we actually empower Tom, and ourselves for that matter, to break this cycle? Fortunately, psychology provides us with a highly effective set of tools, from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical, evidence-based interventions specifically designed to rewrite that faulty internal rulebook that mistakenly equates hard work with physical danger. Let's look at how Tom can start rewiring his responses.
The first incredibly powerful tool is cognitive diffusion. At its core, this is all about distance. When Tom looks at his blank report and thinks, "I'm going to fail and this is unbearable," his brain treats that thought as absolute, unquestionable reality. Cognitive diffusion teaches Tom to treat that thought like a spam email or an annoying pop-up ad on his phone. He notices it's there, sure, but he doesn't have to click on it, engage with it, or believe it. By putting distance between himself and the unhelpful thought, Tom stops letting the anxiety dictate his behavior.
This step-by-step breakdown gives Tom a highly practical daily action plan. First up, mindfulness. Tom can use the STOP technique, which stands for stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. Lengthening his out-breath actually signals absolute safety to his nervous system, effectively pausing the amygdala hijack. Second is stimulus control. This means physical actions. Tom puts his phone in another room entirely and physically unplugs his router if he has to. Finally, systematic exposure. We don't throw Tom off a cliff, we use edges. Instead of sitting down to write 10 pages, Tom commits to typing one single sentence. Then he stops. The nervous system registers that he survived, updating its predictions and proving the task is safe.
And this beautifully sets up our final strategy: effort, reward, inversion. Normally, we only feel good when a task is completely finished, right? We chase that big dopamine hit of completion. But Tom needs to dramatically shift his perception. He needs to learn to literally fist pump just for opening the laptop. He needs to associate the friction of hard work with pride, maybe by intentionally pairing that 60 seconds of agonizing effort with a great cup of coffee or his favorite song. By celebrating the small, gritty steps, he pairs the effort itself with a positive reward. This process slowly makes the meaningful satisfaction of deep work feel rewarding again.
So the next time you find yourself aggressively scrubbing the kitchen tiles, checking your fantasy lineup, or reorganizing your garage when you really should be tackling that major project, remember, you aren't lazy. Your brain is genuinely just trying to protect you. Acknowledge the fear, take a deep breath, and just take one tiny, manageable step toward the real work. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to reflect on. What important task is your brain desperately trying to protect you from today, and what small step will you take to reclaim your time? Thanks for joining me as we unpacked the source material today. I'll see you next time.